The nation's top farm policy leader visits Nebraska saying rural America matters, so it's time to pass a farm bill. Welcome to NTV's Grow. More on Secretary of Ag Tom Vilsack's visit in just a bit. Plus tonight we will have an update on a battle between conservation interests and irrigators. But we start with a look at harvest. Things are winding down and our co-host Marilyn Barnett has an update from farmers across the state.
From great yields to horrible test weights, it all depends on where you are standing in the state of Nebraska. Many farmers from across the state were able to share their harvest results. Here's a look. First, we'll start in Bruning, where harvest is wrapping up with great results.
It's been a really great harvest with great yields, and very blessed to have a safe harvest.
In Pleasanton, progress is being made. Some may have a couple days left as of last week.
We're about a month later than we were last year, but in ag you just kind of learn to roll with the punches. Corn and beans are tremendous again this year, so that's good to see with the lower prices.
Now, in some areas, harvest is already wrapped up. Some say yields were horrible. It's all about where the rain fell.
The yields were down, due mainly just because we were still in the drought from last year. That a lot of my other leaf fellows have gotten out of their droughts, but we're still in it. So.
Okay, is that frustrating for you to hear other parts of the state?
Yeah, when I hear their yields, it's a little frustrating.
Those guys are trying to plug along and hope for a better year next year.
Playing on our same rotations and gonna pray for rain.
Meanwhile, other crops for next year are looking promising. What needs to happen
Wheat
to help you
crop
out?
looks awesome this year. This is one of the best starts we've had in probably 6 years.
Then, on the other end of the spectrum, for those in the southeast part of the state, it's so wet they're having issues getting in the fields.
We're not finished yet. We're still a little wet. We're kind of progressing. You know, everyone's moving at their own pace. It's wet, but we're about a week away, so we're feeling good. The light's at the end of the tunnel.
Now, as a reminder, of course, I talked to these producers at a lead seminar. This was about a week ago. Some of them might have already wrapped up their harvest. However, the main thing is, no matter where they are, east to west and in between, these farmers are going to keep plugging away no matter what Mother Nature throws at them.
The moisture certainly has slowed harvest, but farmers in Nebraska are ahead of average. The USDA says 71% of the state's corn had been harvested by the end of last week, compared to the 66% average last year at this time. The soybean harvest was 97% complete. Plummeting corn prices create concern, with prices a fraction of what they were just a few months ago. It's not unusual to see prices drop at harvest when supply is the greatest, although the last few years prices have remained strong this time of year, but not this time around.
We saw $7.50 and now we're down to $4 1/4 basically, so it's definitely come down.
The rain and cool days we've had have limited time in the field and affected the moisture level of the crop.
It's definitely unusual this year how it's not drying down. The moisture just is hanging on.
What a difference from 2012, when drought hurt dryland yields and affected the markets. With Washington paralyzed by politics, the nation's farmers demand action to break the gridlock over the farm bill. So is it time to maybe take the food stamps out of that policy? USDA Chief Tom Vilsack says no. Here are his thoughts from a visit to Lincoln.
It's a research bill. It's an innovation bill. It's a trade bill. It's a jobs bill.
You can hear it in his voice.
And I'm the lone voice here going.
As Ag Secretary Tom Vilsack says, he's frustrated by the inability to pass a farm bill.
Every American benefits from the passage of this bill.
At the Rural Futures Conference in Lincoln, Vilsack said rural America matters, but farmers are just 1% of the population. So when it comes to the farm bill, Vilsack said they must build coalitions with the other 99%. And that's why food stamps are in the farm bill.
Connecting the two makes it easier for folks, particularly in urban and suburban areas, representatives who represent those areas, to vote for a farm bill, so they can go back home and they can explain to folks why they voted for that legislation, because there are things in it that benefit all of America.
Some conservative House Republicans see food stamps as a bloated welfare program and want it cut from the Farm Bill.
The House of Representatives' proposal is the wrong policy.
Vilsack said he's not optimistic, but at least hopeful.
I think that's a good way to phrase it. The Farm Bill is a complicated piece of legislation. It is always fairly difficult to get through Congress.
The congressman and USDA chief are on different sides of the aisle, but agree it's time to pass this.
So there is a meandering and narrow pathway here, but the trajectory is right. We need a Farm Bill.
Congressman Jeff Fortenberry says it's time to listen to a famous Nebraskan.
So let's get her done.
The debate over water rights intensifies in the Upper Big Blue Natural Resources District. NTV's Sarah Kirkley has more.
The plan is causing concern.
There's not a soul here who looks out and says, how much water can I use?
And even anger. But the officials at the Upper Big Blue Natural Resources District say a plan to allocate groundwater in their 9-county area is needed.
We saw a serious decline. We're within 3 feet of where the allocation trigger is.
That's the 1978 level, a trigger that's been on the books for decades, but now the board wants to set an allocation number. The one proposed, 45 inches per acre over 5 years. That's an average of 9 inches a year, a number some farmers say is concerning coming out of the recent drought.
Looking at what we've been through, it's obvious that maybe 9 inches wasn't enough.
Instead of pumping higher yields into their crops, some farmers feel their profits will dry up. And the 5-year time period over a 3-year agreement isn't sitting well with some of those attending the NRD's latest hearing either.
There's pros and cons to both, and the board finally settled, let's go with 5 years to give people flexibility with the 9 inches.
A concern of many are the upfront costs, like meters, which one farmer tells me could cost $1,200 a piece.
And until we go into allocation, I can't see why we'd want to spend roughly $8 million putting more meters on when we could rather spend that $8 million making improvements in our irrigation systems.
NRD officials admit it will be a struggle, but say with 5,000 meters needed in the area, they need to get started.
If we're going to allocate water, everybody needs to know how much water they're using, and the best way to do it is to meter. You don't drive down the interstate highway without a speedometer.
But farmers and conservation advocates do agree on one point.
If you take the water away from this area, our communities are going to dry up. There's no reason for all these small towns to be here.
Some say if Made in America is to make a comeback, it'll be in rural America with a bio-based economy. Don't tell that, though, to kids at York High School. They already know it as they study biotechnology and genetics, not in science class, but FFA. Congressman Adrian Smith stopped by to learn more.
America, they're trying to say that pig's not happy because he's in a crate. That's an issue.
Animal welfare versus animal rights. That's part of the curriculum at York High School, along with a new live animal lab.
And truly, this is a unique and different part of our program.
It attracted the interest of Congressman Adrian Smith.
It's bringing education and the Nebraska economy, or actually our nation's economy, together.
York's agricultural education is much more than welding and agronomy. It's also biotechnology and genetics.
Our rabbit lab, we're studying genetics. Okay, we're making F1 crosses, F2 crosses, F3 crosses. We're figuring out the ratios and the predictability and probability of what the ear length, the hair color, the hair length that the offspring will have.
And they combine that with hands-on work, raising small pets, even pigs.
I live in the town. I didn't know anything about where our meat came from or how we raise animals. And then being in ag classes here, I've learned so much about where our food comes from, and I learned to appreciate what the farmers do.
When kids leave here, they're going to excel in math and science and reading, but we also want them to have an appreciation of where their food comes from.
And that's what impressed the congressman, the commitment to integrate science and technology into that agricultural curriculum.
Kids get excited when they get to see and do new things.
Really teaching students and even the community as a whole about where our food comes from.
Those kids also raise hogs, and of course, who doesn't love bacon? That's the subject of a special series. Stay tuned to NTV in the coming days for more about Baconomics. And an Academy Award-winning filmmaker turns his lens onto rural America. Farmland is the work of director James Mole. He has spent time with 6 young farmers across the country in an effort to show the story of how farming has changed and how farmers are adapting. The film is scheduled to be released in the spring. It is supported by the U.S. Farmers and Ranchers Alliance, a group that includes the corn and soybean boards here in Nebraska, American Farm Bureau, and many other farm organizations. Determining cash rents on the farm is a difficult topic. We've got some advice with our co-host Marilyn Barnett after the break.